Welcome guys to another video, and this one's going to be a little bit more on the dangerous end. So hopefully you read the disclaimer. Hopefully you are being very careful with this, but yeah, so we'll get into it. Today we're going to be doing a spring swap. So as you can see, move some stuff out of the way. I got Eibach springs. These are the Pro Kit. So I decided not to go with coilovers. After doing some research, talking with some people, you know, everybody was telling me that coilovers probably aren't the best way to go in terms of tracking. If I wanted to stance the car or make it look, you know, lower it, probably be the best way, but I'm not trying to do that. I'm trying to stiffen up the ride a little bit, so when we go to the track, we're taking those corners and the car is just hitting it perfectly. So that's what we're doing today. We're going to start with the rears. I'm leaving the fronts as maybe a tomorrow thing, but I'm not sure. It's all dependent how fast this gets done and how hard one of them will be. So that being said, please remember, when messing with a loaded spring, it is very dangerous. There's a lot of potential of you getting hurt. So if you are willing to take that risk, or do not have the money to be able to take it to a shop for them to do this, you know, I would say this is the best route to go. But if you are able to take it to a shop, or you're not sure what you're doing, please take it to a shop. Don't do this yourself. There's potential of getting hurt. So I've done this before. I'd rather do it at a shop, which I was originally planning on doing, but wasn't able to do it, and so I'm just doing it myself. So that being said, I'm going to try and do a little bit more detailed on what you need to do and how to go about it. So but we'll start is, this is what you'll need. You will need a strut spring compressor. So these guys will go on the outside of the spring. They'll clamp on, and then they'll squeeze the spring down, and then in that instance you'll be able to either take it out of the rear end, or you'll be able to take the top bolt off of the strut, and you'll be able to take the spring off, re-put the new one, squeeze it down, and then put the bolt on top, or the cap, to keep the spring in. Those are the most dangerous ones, so that's why you need to be very, very careful, and just make sure everything is not going to pop out or anything. Use these little safety pins here to keep it from potentially popping out, so you don't get hurt. But what we're going to do now is we're going to do the rear end. We're going to start there. So we're going to take the wheel off, and we're going to jack this up, and then that way we can get everything looking good. So our first plan is to, I jacked up the car and I took the wheel off, but I realized that if I take the damper off, or the strut part, I want to say, I'm sure that's the wrong terminology, I'll fix that. If I loosen that, that should give us enough play in the actual like upper control arm and everything to push down and get the stock spring out, which would be great. We're still going to use the spring compressors to help just make it easier, but with that giving us some play, it's going to be a lot less work that we need to do. So what we'll need to do is pull out that clip there and a clip up there, and then pull this back, and we should have the strut sitting like right here somewhere. So that's what we're going to do right now. I realized that the actual dampener is not going into the car. It's actually here on the side. So you can see here. Let me see if I can get this to line up right. It's so, that makes it so much easier. So all we have to do is just lift it up. Hopefully I just do not need to push this down, or it's gonna make it so much harder. So you can see it's right there. So we're gonna unscrew that, and then this will be able to lower down. And then once we got that, we should be able to access the spring, which doesn't look too complicated to get to. And then we'll put the new ones on. So yeah, we're gonna get into here, unscrew those there, and then this should lower down a little bit more, and we'll be able to get the spring up. For the past hour and a half, give or take, I've been trying to figure out how to go about doing this. Now, I've never done this, keep in mind, so this is something completely new, and trust me, this is not an easy task. Or it is, but it isn't. I made it harder for myself. So yeah, that was dumb on my end, but either way, I figured it out. So one thing to keep in mind, yes, go ahead and do this, or you can do it from the bottom right down there. But thing to keep in mind, and I do have to give a shout out to sorry, I'm like pointing this at the camera. I do have to give a shout out to RP Productions and Ricardo from Fast Tech. They did a video because I needed to double check. I thought I had to go back to like O'Reilly's or something like that to go, you know, get a spring tool to do this, and turns out I didn't. There's a couple things I needed to do, and I should have just double checked my research before tackling this, but that's what I get for going into it blind. So this is what you should do. You don't need to touch this. You don't need to touch that. You don't need to touch the sway bar. You don't need to touch this either. Now you do need to loosen up the knuckle, or at least this portion here on that cradle, and this one right here, so you can have access to that bolt to be able to get it out. And right back there, the bottom bolt down there, you need to loosen that one, so you can let this, let me see if I can get this real quick, so this can move around freely. I can't bring it up because the spring is out of its place, but once you do that, then you can remove the spring. There we go. Oh man, I honestly thought I was going to be able to do this today, but you know, thankfully I was able to get it out, and the other side is going to be so much easier. Oh, look at all that tire. I just noticed that. But yeah, so let's go ahead and grab the new spring and compare the two, so that way we have a way of being able to look at it. Again, I apologize for any not showing you. I'm going to try and show you on the other side, so that way you can see what I'm doing. I just needed to figure it out first before I showed you guys, because it would have taken multiple takes and hours to figure it out. But I got it, and so now we're gonna go ahead and grab the springs and compare the two. It's day 2. We've only done one side. Long story short, I took apart things that I shouldn't have, and it took forever to get it back together. I actually was able to get it back together this morning. So, but like I said, I watched RP Productions and Ricardo from Fast Tech do this, and I realized, hey, this is a lot easier if I just take apart a couple things. So the idea now is I'm gonna try and kind of go over it again. One side's already been done, which is the driver's or passenger rear. That spring is already in. I'm gonna do the driver's rear end, and then I'm gonna do the front struts. Now, like I said, this is gonna be a long process. It should go smoother now that I know what I'm doing. But definitely do your research before you do any of this, so you don't run into the issue that I did. I started at about 6 o'clock, stopped at midnight, almost midnight, about 11. It's embarrassing, but you know, it's for those of you who go through these processes, you know, it happens. It's not just you, it's everybody, you know, whether they know how to do something or not, then they figure, oh, look, it's easier if I do it this way. But outside of that, now that we know what we're doing, it's good to go. Everything's buttoned up. I'm gonna get an alignment. I don't think it needs one because everything kind of went back together, but never hurts just to double check things, make sure everything is back where it needs to be. But we did that one side. I measured it. It's still on the same height as the other side. So we're gonna do the other side. We're gonna do all corners and kind of go about that way. But I'm gonna show you guys the measurements that, you know, where it's sitting, and then we'll show you once I take it for a drive and kind of get everything moving to see how much, you know, how much shorter it gets. The rear is supposed to go 0.9 inches, so not a full inch, but it should be shorter at that end. But I can feel the car tilting, you know, to the backside slightly. So but when I measured it, I didn't see any difference. So it just could be that things need to break in and kind of reset. So for right now, that's what we're gonna do, is we're gonna do this side, and then we'll be ready to go. This is what we're doing. You're leaving this, and this alone, not touching it. Maybe the only things you might touch are a couple of the cables so that way they're not pulling, but that's good. Outside of that, you definitely want to take this brake clip out so that way this can have a little play so it's not pulling on the cable, because this needs to go down slightly. And outside of that, we just need to loosen up the shocks, take off this plastic cover that's under here, and we'll be able to get to the bolts that we need to. There's only 2 bolts that we need to get to, and it's the one holding this tie end, and I'm calling it a cradle. That's what I think it's called. I'm probably wrong, but it's this one right there. So hopefully you guys can see that, but that one right there, just those 2 bolts, and then these ones in here that are holding this together. Now keep in mind, normally most of the shocks go into the body panel. These don't. These stick to the outside of the frame, so just cool. Makes it easier to get into. So yeah, we'll go into that and then we'll move on to the next steps. Alright, so we took these out. So this is loose, and we also took the pin, this pin, out of here, so that way this has a little plane to it, so because this has to drop, and last thing we want is to break any brake lines. So the next thing to do now is we're going to take this plastic piece off. That way we can make sure that you know, we're not going to run into any issues breaking it, because you can lift it with it on, but honestly it just is going to make it easier, because then if it breaks, then it just looks, I mean, no one's going to see it. But regardless, we're going to take that off, and then from there we're going to take this one off, because in order to get to a bolt we need to take this off first. So we're going to take that off, and then we're going to be able to take that one out, and then that will be able to swing down. So we'll go ahead and do that. And what you'll need is a 3/4 or a 18 millimeter socket or wrenches. And you will also need a 15 millimeter because on this one here, on one side it's 15 and the other side it's 18. I don't understand the reasoning, but hey, I didn't build the car. So that's yeah, so once that's all done, then we'll be ready to go. So we'll probably do is yeah, we'll just take that guy off. We've got everything taken off. So we've taken off the bolts off this one and taken that bolt out. We still have pressure in the on the spring, so it wasn't going to shoot down once we loosen that up. So now we're going to just slowly bring down the jack. So that way we get some of that pressure off the spring. So that'll happen. So don't freak out. The one thing I forgot to mention is we need to loosen that bolt right here. So the one that's the lower one there, because this is super stiff, so we're not going to be able to get the spring out. It's still in there really tight, so we got to loosen that up, and that's a 22 millimeter. So we're going to loosen that up, and then we'll be able to get the spring out. So the one thing I forgot to tell you, make sure you pull this out when you start loosening that out, because then it's not going to go down, because this is holding everything. But I've already loosened it up enough to where it's like super easy, because we're going to really want to retighten it all together. So I still have it up with the jack, so now we should be seeing this come down a little bit better. There we go. And that's it. So spring is still kind of in there, so we might need to loosen that up a little bit more. Oh, nope. We're good. So you can push that down. This will come out a little bit. It's just the spring is stuck in there. Okay, so I need to just push down a little bit more. But there we go. And it's out. From this point on the other side, hold on, let me. When I did the other side, when I got to that point, it took me 3 hours. This took me about, I would say 30 minutes, give or take, only because I'm just going slowly and, you know, just making sure I'm doing everything right this time. So yeah, now that it's daylight and it's a little brighter, I can show you guys the difference in between springs. I'll take this outside. So as you can see, this is the stock spring, this is the new springs, and pretty big difference. So you can see there's a lot more coils here, and it's more tightly wound as opposed to here. So this will give us a drop in height, but also stiffen everything up. And I mean, overall, it just looks thicker. So it's going to stiffen up the ride a little bit more, so corners are going to be a lot better. But overall, I mean, the difference between the two is, you know, it speaks for itself. And these rubber pieces here are so when these clamp, when I'm taking the corner hard or anything, they're not going to bump against each other, and you know, metal to metal over time will end up breaking, so that keeps that from happening. But that's it. So you saw this on top of it here, and this one sits on top here. So at the bottom of it, you can see that there's kind of like a groove, and that follows it as well. And you'll be able to tell on which side it goes on because this fits snug. As you can see, it's like really on there. If I were to flip it, that's not the case. See, it moves around. That's not what you want. So we want that there, and that's it. Now we can go throw this into the car. Putting it back is pretty much the same. Now what you're going to want to do is down there, as you can see, there's also a grommet that this follows. So you're going to want to do the exact same thing when you're putting this in. So hopefully I can show you guys. Want to keep turning until you feel resistance, and that's it. Let's see if you guys can see that. So that's the resistance you want to hit. You're going to push down a little bit because I gotta move this out of the way a little bit because it's hitting it. That way I can push down. Just squeeze my foot and get it to a little bit more, and then bring it back up like so. So what you're gonna do is, one, you're gonna want to make sure that when this goes back up, the spring is going to be in that cradle. So it is. Yep. And we're going to use the jack to jack it back up. And then we'll put this to hold it back in place. We'll put everything back in the reverse order. So put this back in there. And when you're putting that back, the one thing that they said in their video, and I definitely recommend, is this was in that spot this way. They said to flip it because if at any point you need to do some work, that way you don't, like, let's say you want to upgrade the springs again or something happens or go back to stock, instead of having to take this apart, you can pull this out this way and it's golden. You don't have to pull that apart. It makes it easier. So just as a little tip. So again, thank you, Ricardo. Thank you, RP Productions. You guys definitely, you guys helped me out on this one. We put the shock back, so that's going to be holding the spring together, so it's not going to be like moving around everywhere. The one thing that they were trying to make sure everybody knew is when you're putting back, shot of it. Okay, when you're putting that back, hold on, come on, there we go. When you're putting that back, you want to jack it up and go slow so that way the grommets slide in perfectly. On the other side, oh man, I can't tell you how long it took me to get that to go back in. I put some WD-40 to see if that would help. I'm probably going to do it again just to make sure it just seats in perfectly, or it goes in smoother, so it doesn't cause any any scratches or anything, and then it causes a rough surface. But outside of that, we're going to jack it back up, and then we're going to put the pin in on the opposite end, so it's going to come in this way, not this way, and we can just We're not gonna tighten it up yet. We're just gonna put the, what did I say, pin? Bolt. We're gonna put a bolt in, and we're gonna put it on, thread it on, and then we're gonna put this side back on as well. So then that way, if we need a little wiggle room, we've got it. And once everything's back on, we'll tighten up all the bolts. We'll tighten up that back one that we loosened up, and we can put the wheel back on, and then that's it. Ran into some issues, but I was able to get it all fixed because I kind of had to do the same thing that I did on the other side, but not as intense. So this one here, that bolt was being a pain in the butt. So what I had to do is take this off, take that off, loosen this guy up, and I was able to kind of get it, you know, into the spot, or get it close enough so I could then put the bolt through. It's definitely a pain, but now that it's all in, you know, I put in the nuts on so that way, you know, nothing was gonna fall out. And now it's all just tightening it up. So yeah, that's pretty much it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm essentially going to let the jack go, so that way that stays, you know, everything's static, at least it's hanging down, and then I'll tighten everything up so that way I tighten it up how I loosened it for the most part. I mean, I'm gonna have to get another alignment, but that being said, it'll make do for now, until I get that done sometime either this week or next week. But yeah, so the rear end is pretty much done. We're going to just, yeah, tighten things up and put the wheel back on, and then we'll get to the fronts. It's time to do the fronts, and this should be, I'm hoping it'll be easier. But there's a couple things that we got to do first before, you know, we can, you know, start pulling this out. We got a bunch of, you know, we got our brake line, and I believe Ricardo said that this was the speed sensor, and that's attached to the actual strut tower itself. So we got to get that off before we're able to, you know, take that off. And so that being said too, it looks like this is also attached, so we're gonna have to take this off as well, before we can take this off. So from the looks of it, it all looks pretty, you know, pretty self-explanatory. So this is a 10 millimeter here, so we'll be able to take that off. And then I'm not sure what this is, but we'll be able to take that off pretty simple too, I'm hoping. And that should be it. Now I do have to find a spot to put the strut, or that way I can hold the strut tower up, or the car up, and then I can lower the car or the strut tower slowly, so that way I can, you know, make sure I can get this pulled out. But as far as I can tell, it's not too simple, but I will figure it out as I go at this point. But it's looking pretty good. The front sway bar is all connected too. It looks like we're gonna have to take this link off, because I think this is all one piece. I don't think this is a piece that just comes out, but we'll find out once we get to that point. So what we're gonna do is take these lines off, and then we're gonna try and support the car at a different point, so that way we can, you know, adjust the strut tower, and then we'll move up to removing the 3 bolts up here. So just to give you a heads up of what I did need to move a couple things, but other than that, everything is off. So this is the speed sensor, and I'm gonna clean that up because it's really gross. But that was right here. I took that off, and you do have to take this off, or else this is not going to be able to come off. The video I watched had an SS on it, or it was an SS, so I'm assuming it's the same, but I didn't see them take this off when I first saw them do the video, and this was the same side that I saw. So either way, you had to take that off. That came off pretty easily. Had to maneuver it because I should have taken that off first, but you know, of course I didn't. But now the strut is hanging freely. You know, this is hanging out freely, so this will be okay. There's no real hard tension on anything, so far everything is looking pretty good. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna take these 3 bolts off, and they're actually bolts. They're not screws, obviously, or they're not nuts, because then you would see the bolt part. So just make sure you take them off, and then when you take the last one off, either have somebody hold the strut, you know, the strut, or you know, hold it with one hand and take out the last one with a drill or something. So that's what we're going to do next. What we're going to do now is we're going to compress the spring, and we're going to use these spring compressors here. Now this is the dangerous part, so please be super careful when doing this. You know, definitely don't aim it up towards you, towards somebody, and just be very careful when doing this. But we're going to put these pieces here, and you kind of want to find a spot that's, you know, gonna give you a pretty good grip, and we're gonna drill it down to squeeze it a little bit, and then on top there's a cap, but my cap like popped off, and you're gonna take that screw out, and then you'll be good to go. It's a little gross in there, but we'll try and clean that out once we get this off and get everything you know, swapped out. We were able to compress the spring. You don't have to go a whole lot. I just went a little extra to just give myself a little bit more room, but like you can see, it's just, you know, honestly, that's not that, these weren't very far when I put those on. But was able to take the nut off, and then the cap, and then the rubber boot, and the top of the tower off. So that's all, you know, taken care of. And then now we just decompress these, and you want to do it very slowly until it comes back to its full, you know, decompressed state, and then you can take the spring out. I'm just using an impact drill, so it's going by pretty quick, but take your time, you know, and you want to do it till you can finger loosen it, and then that's when you know all the tension's been taken out. So let's go ahead and do this real quick. And you want to jump side to side, not just one side and then the other. There's a lot of tension, as you can see, so you gotta give it a little bit of time. All right, one side is done. Be careful on the other. There's still some spring load under there, so just be careful. There we go. That's it. And with that, we'll be able to take this off. And that's it. And then we just take these off, we put them on the new ones, we compress those, we put the cap back on, and we do the reverse order. So I'm just gonna clean some of this up because it's pretty gross, but and I'm gonna try and fix the rubber boot to sit over this. Probably just put like some glue or something, so that way the dust cap doesn't keep moving up and down. But other than that, it's looking pretty good. And this is just a check on the size. So you can see much bigger room, a lot more travel. It's a little bit more of a smoother ride. These are a lot closer, so it's going to be a lot more tighter, but it's going to stiffen things up, and it's going to lower it a good amount, as you can see. So hopefully that gap that we had in the front end disappears, but we'll see once we get these on. So we're gonna go ahead and compress these and put them on the car. And she's good to go. So like I said before, you know, just be very careful when you're doing this. You know, I've done it before, so I kind of, you know, not kind of, but I know what I'm doing. But just, you know, be super careful when doing this, just so you don't hurt anybody. But that being said, it's in. There is, the boot's pinched a little bit, but in this case, because the boot's always up, it doesn't really matter. It just took a little bit of, you know, ingenuity to figure out how to get this the bolt back in without, you know, just trying to figure out how to get it in there. Put a little bit of WD-40 just to kind of give it a little more, you know, leeway, but not leeway, just to give it a little bit of lubricant to get down easier. But the center was still spinning, and you know, that's super tough to not let happen. So what I did is I grabbed some pliers with like some rubber, with a rubber glove, and I grabbed the inside of the shock, and I just gripped it, and then just let the drill do the rest of the work. And you know, I don't feel any, you know, divots or any grooves. That's why I put the glove on there, to just help protect the strut itself from any scratches or anything like that can cause damage later down the line. But outside of that, it looks really good. These springs are super stiff, so these are going to be really good. But outside of that, this is really good. It's at the bottom. You know, I got it down as far as I possibly could. I might even just get you know, a wrench and just kind of tighten it up a little bit more to give it a little bit more, you know, just to make sure it's seated properly. I don't think I need to do that, to be honest, because with the strength of the shock, that's not going to go anywhere. It's seated really well. So now it's just time to put everything back, and you just kind of go in the reverse order. So what we're going to do is we're going to lift this up. We're going to screw in one of the bolts for the top of it, and then we'll put the 3, and then we'll just kind of go in the reverse order, which was putting this back in, putting the sway bar link back onto the strut, and then putting, you know, the speed sensor back, and putting the brake line back onto the, connect it back on, and we should be good to go. So I'm gonna go ahead and just kind of put that all together, and then we'll see the end result. Well, I completely forgot to finish this video, and it's 8 months later. So thankfully Kyle was cool enough to help me out as I was editing this. So what I told you guys 8 months ago was I was gonna show you all of this back together, and turns out I didn't do that. So after some alignments and some tracking and a lot of stuff, these have seen better days. So, but that being said though, these are definitely broken in, and everything looks pretty good as far as what we saw them last. So yeah, so brake line's back in. You know, we reconnected everything back together. The sway bar end link here is all good back in, or it's back in nice and tight, and should be, because I've tracked this multiple times since then. But yeah, as you can see, it's definitely hitting in certain parts, but you know, that's to be expected. If I was just doing some normal driving, you know, these would probably be in better shape. But because at autocross, you know, this is definitely seeing a lot of abuse. So, but so far these are looking pretty good. And I think some new struts will definitely help the overall ride quality, because I think these are starting to go out, because this is a little bit lower, and it's definitely just been through its paces in the past few years. So but yeah, that's what I wanted to show you, and I'll also show you guys what the car looks like on a flat surface. You know, that way you can see it broken in. And I think that's the reason why I waited to show you guys anything, because I wanted everything to break in, but everything's broken in now. So now we should be good. The springs are really, really good. Track has been great. The rear end is also doing really well. Maybe you guys will see it, maybe you guys won't, I don't know. But those are doing pretty good. Hopefully you saw them, but yeah, thanks Kyle. I appreciate you letting me finish this video. But now we're gonna put it back on. We're gonna push it out, and then I'll show you guys what it looks like on a flat surface. This is on a flat surface. This is still kind of a little raised. I mean, actually that's how it kind of sits anyway. But as you can see, it's about, well, I mean the tire's a little rounded, so, but it fits in really, really well. The tire looks really good. These are my old ones. I have my other race tires. They're off for now. The back end definitely sits in a lot higher, and there is some rubbing. I definitely can hear it here and there, but not enough to make anything look off, sound off. I'm glad that I did move the harness that sits back here, because these started rubbing into it. But that's what it looks like. You know, it does look a lot better, a lot lower. The stance is great. I mean, overall, the look of it just looks fantastic. And it just rides really, really good. So yeah, I mean, I wasn't sure why I never finished this video, but I'm glad that I did get to finish it, and after the fact that the springs were broken in. So I apologize if things look different, I look different, but you know, if you want to do this, I highly recommend it. Again, it's not something everybody can do. Please be very careful. Please, if you don't know how to do this, find somebody to help you do this. And you know, take the time, don't rush it, because you are messing with the suspension of the car. I do recommend taking it to get aligned after you do it, because you might be, you know, loosening a couple things and it might be off a little bit. So get it aligned and you'll be good. This thing is running great and it hits the track perfectly, and I got a lot of videos I've been working on to try and get finished. So but that's it, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. I've been hardcore lagging on all of the videos, and I'm gonna try and get back on to doing more videos and putting them out as often as I can, and trying to get you guys more content. But that's what I got for now. Again, thank you for watching. Thank you to everybody reaching out to me on questions and everything. Please feel free to reach out to me through Facebook, Instagram, or through here on YouTube. But that's all I got. Again, feel free to comment. Let me know if I'm sure I'm naming a lot of things wrong, and I know that, so I apologize. But again, I'm trying to show you more things, and hopefully on the next few videos won't be like that, but my upcoming videos, and as I shoot more, it'll be better. So yeah, thanks a lot, guys, again for watching. Please like, subscribe, share it to somebody who's thinking about it. I'll have the products down below so you guys can take a look and see if you want to get it yourself for your car. But until then, thanks a lot, guys, and we'll see you on the next one.